Pleasant good evening. We have veteran journalist Ken Ali. Always a pleasure to have you on. Pleasant good evening, Mr. Ali.
Good evening to you, Mikey, and your viewership.
Thank you. A wonderful piece here. Load up the matic. There are 38 American states with stand your ground laws. The legislation has been used in several trials, including the Florida murder case a decade ago of George Zimmerman in the killing of teenager Trayvon Martin, in which the accused was freed. There are such laws in Canada and several European countries, France, England, Germany, and others. And of course, this is nothing new. But here it is in Trinidad and Tobago. This has been the debate for quite a few days now. And while that's taking place, our citizens are still vulnerable, our senior citizens are still soft targets, and many of us are being terrorized in our homes. We did not get here overnight. What say you weighing in on this issue?
Well, the first thing, it is regrettable that this matter, as so many other issues, break out into politics and ethnic politics at that. Because as I say in that piece, and I carefully researched it, in the U.S. there are 38 states out of the 50 in which there are stand your ground laws. Now, there's what is called settled law. The attorneys will tell you settled law means that laws in which there have been appeals and the appeal court or the Supreme Court would have upheld it. So in those 38 countries, it's not like a monolithic law, that each state has its own law, which it has tweaked over time. I cited that matter with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman because it was well reported, and a lot of people may remember that. But in addition to that, in Europe, it is common, in Canada, in various parts of the country, of the world, and in some places like Japan and Argentina, it's even more lenient in the sense that you could utilize force, and the force does not have to be commensurate with the threat. In other words, if you have an assumption that someone has come to your premises with a weapon and is looking to attack you, you could defend yourself, your family, your property, and so on, and that is sufficient defense. But the overall sense around the world, Mikey, is that this law has been around for a long time.
Right.
And even in Trinidad, under the Indictable Offences Act, there is some measure of that. But the fact that we are in an election season and a lot of the election stuff is in an ethnic sense, it has broken out as an ethnic issue in Trinidad and Tobago, which, as you correctly said, is so unfortunate because the crime situation is really out of bounds in our country. I tell people that what you see reported in the media is a fraction of what takes place. We have lost an entire generation of youth, and we have thousands of youths who are involved in either organized gang activity or they're in single pursuit of carrying out crimes. There was a time when we had the gang laws and so on, and the Attorney General then had said, we know how many gangs there are.
Right, yeah, we were told that.
Right, all of that has gone absolutely nowhere. So the country, we are in the grip of the worst. And let me make this point. Well, first, let me complete that sentence by saying we are in the worst crime warfare we've ever had. I did some research, and in that article, I cited my source, if anybody wanted to challenge it. There is a website where it indicated in some crime categories, Trinidad is worse than in Haiti. Right? Now, in Haiti, there are a lot of lynchings, there are a lot of kidnappings. They kidnap people, and they extract from them, and then sometimes they sell them to another gang who extract out of them, and so on. And there are a lot of lynchings and murders and so on. But there are some areas of crime in our country in which per capita it is worse than in Haiti. So this is how bad our situation is. The Express newspaper has been saying, and many of us have been saying, that this government has not come up with a single proposal yet to fight crime after 8 years, and the statistics get worse all the time. The Prime Minister has refused to change his security minister. The police commissioner, clearly she is out of reach in this.
Yeah.
And every measure that we've tried has not helped people. And whether it is this lady who was leaving her home and got shot and killed on Saturday, or the family in Barrackpore, or wherever in Freeport and throughout the country, it appears once nightfall hits, There are a lot of gangsters roaming.
And you're right about that. And I don't need to know the story after, as far as that's for the detectives and investigators to do. I want to know how it is that something like this can happen so brazen in broad daylight, where another life could be snuffed out. People come, 15, 20 shots, and that's it. And it's happening as though it's nothing, you know. I mean, when you wake up in the morning and you hear nothing happened the night before as far as killings, then you're surprised. But you're waking up and you're saying, well, 3 or 4 or 5. It seems as though society has become immune to all of this.
Yeah, we become numb to it. And an important thing in all of this, let's look at the Saturday killing of the lady in Philippines. Don't the police have surveillance equipment? Couldn't they do reconnaissance? Is it that this one vehicle could escape the search of all the police stations, all the all points bulletin, or everything, use of modern technology? So what's the use of all this equipment when one vehicle could just absolutely escape in a small island like ours? And you see, and there's what the people have absolutely lost faith in the system. And the crime situation continues to get worse. And as we say, desperate times call for desperate measures. And the stand your ground will not necessarily solve crime, but I think it is one measure, and that should be considered. But you see, Mikey, there is a sense that the government has given up, and they are playing politics with crime, and they're throwing blame onto the opposition instead of being held accountable. And I also think some sections of the media are guilty in terms of playing that game also.
Yeah, but you have the Prime Minister at a symposium with the CARICOM heads of security, and he is saying that this problem did not occur overnight. He said that we allowed this defiant behavior to get into our classrooms, into our courtrooms, and into Parliament and different areas of our society. And who is the we? If he's saying that we are to be held accountable, who are the we that has been turning a blind eye to this? Because we are not the part of society that is insulated with security detail, that our children are in school, in classes, and there's a security detail outside the school. We don't have that luxury. We don't have that privilege, mind you.
You see, you touch on a critical aspect of it. Part of Dr. Rowley's political brand is to take the moral high ground on everything. To be arrogant, haughty, to be standoffish, and so on. And here, the example you quote is a classic example. In other words, this is everybody's problem. When, as I read every so often, the 2015 general election manifesto of the PNM, they had the solutions to everything. There were pages and pages of solutions to crime when they got into office. Nobody expected to turn things around immediately, but certainly nobody expected figures to double. And the critical point of all of this is the government is not holding itself accountable. And in any society, I mean, the Minister of National Security is an absolute failure. He has clearly shown he has no leadership skills, and there have been no policy direction to seek to solve this crime situation. But the Prime Minister takes a hands-off position, blames it on everything and everybody else. In other words, it is everybody else's problem. And in this campaign trail, he is throwing the blame on Mrs. Prasad's predecessor. What she has done is really prescribe a solution. If it's not a workable solution, all right, well, let's hear other workable solutions. But I wrote that piece because I studied it at length, I read extensively on it, and I see it has worked in various places, and I think it should be considered. One of the points that need to be borne in mind in all of this is that the law is not going to come into effect immediately. This may be, if it comes before the Parliament floor, it may go to a joint select committee. And before a joint select committee, you would have the Law Association, for example, with its input. You may have the Police Association and other stakeholders. So it will take some time, but it will take the valued inputs of various stakeholders before such a law comes into place. And this is why I'm so disappointed that the PNM government and its apologists are throwing it through the window, and the red herring.
And not only that, Mr. Ali, according to your piece, you spoke about, here we go again, blowing the dog whistle to raise bait. How did we reach here? How did this become some sort of ethnic problem when in fact we were told, understand, It seems as though no one can hold this government accountable. And let's be real about it. We were told as citizens on the campaign trail in 2015 that Mr. Hines, who was not the first choice for National Security Minister, was sent to Fairfax County in Virginia. Why? Because they have the similar problems, they have the same amount as far as population, but they have less police officers working around the clock. We don't know if Mr. Hines went. We just took the word of Dr. Rowley. We don't know if it is that anything from Fairfax County was implemented. We highly doubt it because no one visited us from Fairfax County or was even invited by this government. There comes a time when people have to realize, listen, this thing is totally out of control because either we were lied to, we were played for fools, or security was never a priority for this government.
Well, you used part of a statement that I've been thinking about lately. Martin Luther King said in the 60s, there comes a time when the people get tired. And of course, he was involved in a civil rights crusade, which is not what we have here. But the statement, I think, is relevant to here. I think people have got frustrated by the brand of politics of Dr. Rowley, blaming everybody else, not holding himself accountable. And people recall him in opposition, holding the government to account. And people, clearly, the quality of life has deteriorated, whether it's crime, whether it's the cost of living. I see that they're talking now about looking at the minimum wage. But this is a country in which we've gotten 4% increase, while the cost of food has gone up by as much as 100% since 2016. So the government has lost ground on several issues, none more than the crime situation, in which the Express said it quite well a couple of days ago. There have been no solutions prescribed from the government. The government had a series of solutions that they have not worked. We could look at others and so on. But it seems, Mikey, we go in one day, we stumble in one day into another with crime continues to get worse and with no solution.
And the backdrop of all of that, what is playing out again, has nothing to do with the interests of the citizen. Because in one of your other pieces, you were the British firm which has been seeking to uncover fraud in Trinidad and Tobago state sector for several years is having difficulty in collecting millions of dollars from the government. Edmonds Marshall McMahon Limited has unpaid voices for $3.5 million, according to a statement submitted to the government in June. It is estimated that the legal company has so far been paid up to $45 million. And the investigations are centered on the Estate Management and Business Development Company, EMBD, Life Sport, and the now disbanded Education Facilities Company Limited, which is EFCL. And the firm headed by founder Kate McMahon has a mandate to target officials of the previous Kamala Persad-Bissessar administration. How could this be a priority? How could millions of dollars be owed to a company that is simply seem to be on a witch hunt while many of our citizens are crying out for basic services?
Absolutely, and that's the issue. Now, they've spent almost $50 million. The Prime Minister has said that money is not an issue here. In other words, he's going to go at all costs. Now, that, to me, is the definition of a witch hunt. And they have spent all this money. They've interviewed any number of people, and they've been years at this, and they've politicized the entire process. Clearly, what the government wants, senior people in the government, is to take down certain operatives of the Kamala Persad-Bissessar team, or frontline team. And there's a concern in all of this, that as the PNM seems to be rattled in this election, they seem to be getting a wake-up call, whether, in fact, over the next 2 years, they will throw even more resources and they will seek to go after opponents of the PNM heading into the general election, because they'll spend all this money. I got some figures and some documents that indicate they're being owed $3.5 million. They've been paid almost $50 million, and they've achieved nothing in all of this. And it continues to be this witch hunt, and one wonders what is going to be the next step. And while all that's happening, the poor is getting poorer in the country. There is unemployment and all these other issues.
Yeah. I want to thank you so much for taking time out. Before you go, bread and butter issues. We spoke about this before the local government campaign kicked off. Where are we at with that, if you had to rate what's taking place?
Yeah, I think generally we won't know until Monday what is the thinking, but I have a sense that a number of people are outraged by the condition of their life, And I think Mr. Warner and Darryl Griffith have made a difference to the campaign. And it seems that even some hardcore supporters of the PNM may be reviewing their loyalty and so on. And it's always going to come down to a bread and butter issue because ethnic patronage and so on do not pay the bills. And the quality of life, Mikey, in the country has sunk to almost an all-time low. The last time we could compare really was in the early 80s when we had the austerity measures and a lot of taxes and so on.
Yeah.
So we've come back there, or even worse than that. And that has, I think, aroused the attention of a lot of people. I think the result of the election on Monday would give us a real indicator of what the people are thinking.
All right. Thank you so much for taking time out with us this evening. It's been a pleasure as always, and we'll be checking in with you periodically.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and best wishes.
Thank you so much.